control. Her gravity is all that I know. She's over me. She's over me. She comes me with her hypnotic dance. She holds me here with only a glance. She's over me. She's over me. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Paranormal Portal Night Terrors. I'm your host, Brent Thomas, and I'm here with you, so don't be afraid. You're not alone. I got your back. That's for sure. At least I believe I do. But anyway, thanks so much for being here, and happy Thursday to y'all. Tomorrow's Friday. It's all looking better and better every day because we work towards the weekend, and things get lighter and easier, so we got that going for us. So I hope you guys have had a wonderful day, and thank you so much for spending your evening, or at least a part of it, here with me here on the portal. That's outstanding, and I'm just really thrilled to keep seeing the numbers and the names fly in to check out these shows. It's absolutely continues to be an incredibly humbling experience, and thank you guys so much for that. Sorry, I've got a frog in my throat. But I'm just here doing the best I know how, and it's been a good day here. Not too bad. It looks like it might snow again, of course. But other than that, I'm absolutely happy and thrilled with the new year so far. It's been just a wonderful ride. So far, so good. I'm just being optimistic here. I don't know how 2020 is going to work out. And you know how it goes. Every year that comes, we're always like, well, this is the year. This is the year. And then it's like, you get a part way through. It's like, maybe next year. Maybe that's my year. So maybe this is our year. Maybe this is a good year for us. I'm remaining optimistic, maybe cautiously optimistic, but I really believe one of these years I'm going to be right, and it's going to be an amazing year. And I'm hoping it's 2020. The beginning of the Roaring 20s. We're a few weeks into it now, and or at least a couple. How many weeks are we into this? I don't know. It feels like it's been going on for a while now, but I guess it is. Yeah, we're on Wednesday was the 1st, so we're on just over 2 full weeks of 2020, and so far, so good. So we'll take that. But remember, ladies and gentlemen, on Saturday, Don and I will be joined by Mr. Kev Baker of The Kev Baker Show, a wonderful guy, great friend, just an incredibly supportive person who's been really instrumental in spreading the word about the Paranormal Portal on his platform, and he's got a really big platform. A lot of listeners, a lot of people checking out his show. If you're not familiar with the Kev Baker Show, you should get familiar with it. Just a natural, wonderful guy, nice guy. They have amazing topics, great discussion, and just some really cool viewpoints on some pretty incredible stuff. And they touch a lot more than we touch on the Paranormal Portal. In the Paranormal Portal, we stick to the paranormal. That's kind of why why it's called the Paranormal Portal. But the Kev Baker Show does paranormal. They do conspiracy. They do science, weird, wild, odd stuff. So they really cover an incredibly broad spectrum, and you should check it out. They do a marvelous job. Kev is literally about the hardest working guy in YouTube land, as far as I can tell. He's streaming multiple times per day, puts out a fantastic top-notch show, And I know you're going to love it if you go check it out. So it's the Kev Baker Show on YouTube. He's doing great. I'd love to. He's like over 90,000 subs. He's almost at 91,000. I want to see him tip that 100K. That to me would be really cool. He's been at it for a while and has done amazing. And he's also a fellow co-host on TFRlive.com, which is our mother network as well, where the portal started. So that's how we met, and we've been co-conspirators in the TFR world for quite a while now. So, but anyway, he'll be on Saturday night. So I hope you guys will check out that show. It'll be a great time. And if you checked it out a few weeks ago, I guess, I don't remember how many weeks ago now, but we had Scotty Lopez on. Scott Lopez is one of Kev Baker's regulars. He's often on there with Kev and working through, working through all those strange and wonderful topics. And so Scotty's been on. Now we're going to have Kev on. So sometime we'll have to look into getting Mr. Joe Joseph over here, too. He's another one of Kev's regulars. A really great guy. Joe is a real natural as well. Does a wonderful job. So anyway, that's just letting you know what's coming up this Saturday here on the Paranormal Portal. So, some of you guys like it when we have guests on. Some of you don't. It's funny because I hear both sides. I hear, I really like this show, but they should have more guests. I got bored. And then I get other people that are like, well, it's great when you have guests on, but I like it when you just talk. So I hear both sides of it. And, I never wanted the Paranormal Portal to be dependent upon who we could get to show up. I wanted it to be our discussion first. And then if we bring people on, great. That's just, an added bonus. But it's never been about, having a guest platform like a Graham Norton show for the paranormal. I mean, that's never been like that. So we do have guests, and I enjoy having guests. We've had some incredible people on the show helping to share their information and their insights, and that's been wonderful too. But it's never been the basis for the show. So you got to take it or leave it. But you'll have to let me know what you guys prefer. If you guys prefer we have a lot of guests, or if you prefer we just do what we do. Because your opinions do matter. I don't ever mean to imply that your insights or your ideas don't matter. They certainly do. So if you have an idea what you'd like to see on the Paranormal Portal, please reach out via email, paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. I'd love to hear what your insights or thoughts are about the Paranormal Portal and what you like, what you would like to see more of, and what you'd like to see less of. If there's something going on you'd like to see less of, doesn't mean it's necessarily going to change, but your opinion will certainly go into shaping the vision of the portal in the future. So anyway, the phone lines will be open throughout the duration of tonight's show. If you want to call in and be a part of it, I'd love to hear from you. It's always great when you guys call in and share your insights, ideas, experiences, encounters, whatever have you, in the paranormal. So you can call in to 720-923-0500. Again, 720-923-0500. And that will get you right through to me. And if I notice it right away or not, I don't know. I'll look for it, though. I'll keep an eye on the call board. It's right over here. So when you see me looking this way, I'm looking at the call board to see if anything's going on. But I guess that's it on the top end. After Dark Tales of Bromance. I'm Barry, you and your clever little quips. But took me 5 minutes to find parking because I didn't want to park in the murder section. I'm glad you took your time with that, Cha-Cha. That's important. It's hard to come into the chat room if you've been, eliminated. So good job looking out. But welcome everybody. Great to see all you guys in here. And I don't know about you, but I'm just here to tell you, it's time for bed. And say good evening to little Wes over there, leaning up against TV. That's little Wes. I just wanted to point that out. I think that's funny. I think I'm going to put a T-shirt on him and give him a little beard. That'll be our little Wes. All right, so it's just me and you and a whole lot of spooky stories. So I guess we'll get right into it, unless you guys got anything else going on. Um, Little Wes, that kills me. I wonder if Wes is out there watching. Go watch. He's a good sport. All right, so let's continue. I got some stories pulled up, and I'm going to read them to you. But again, the phone lines are open if you want to take part. I'll appreciate any contribution you care to give me. Blue line, so much Jake is here. Good to see you, Jake. I got to get in touch with you and Adam and figure out when you guys are coming on the show. So I'll have to reach out to either one of you on Facebook. Hopefully you guys can come on, though. That'd be great. I'd love to have you guys on and discuss what you guys have been doing in your research. Again, ladies and gentlemen, so much Jake in the chat room is he's one half of the Blue Line Bigfoot crew, and love to have him on the show. So it's been an idea I've had in my head, but I'm sorry, I've just been so tied up. But we'll get it done. Anyway, let's get to these stories, huh? Oh, hey, there's Naga. Good to see you, brother. Let's go here to North Carolina as our first one tonight. I'm surprised I didn't read this already. All right, but it's a nice and short one. Good pace to start out the night with. I got to get my reading chops all loosened up for the show, so a good short story is a good way to start. Again, North Carolina, it says, growing up, I was raised by my paternal grandmother and great aunts. I wonder if I read this. Hold on, I got to look. Blah, 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 blah. No, I don't think so. Okay, no, I don't think I've read this. All right, growing up, I was raised by my paternal grandmother, my great aunt, which is her sister, and my great aunt's daughter, my adult cousin. And we all lived in a cotton mill house in the town of in North Carolina. I experienced many unusual and often frightening events in that house, especially in my early childhood years. One of the things that I remember is the sound of the phantom fire builder. I had no room of my own and would take turns sleeping with all of the 3 adult relatives, and it was in my grandmother's room that I would hear this particular phenomena. Granny's room was located directly behind the kitchen, and there was a fireplace in her room and one in the kitchen that shared the same chimney. We heated exclusively with those fireplaces in the old days, which meant that the wintertime, somebody, either my great aunt or my grandmother, would have to get up before dawn and get the fires going so the house would be warm for the rest of us. Several times I woke up in the early morning hours and lying there in the darkness with Granny snoring beside me, and I'd hear the sounds of the fire being built in the kitchen fireplace. I could plainly hear paper being crumpled and placed, kindling and coal being stacked, and the sound of the fire being stoked with a poker. Only nobody would be up yet. The sounds would just fade away, and sometime later in one of the old folks would get up and really start the fire. And I suppose this probably would fall into the category of a residual haunting, where a past event plays over and over again like a movie, but nobody ever seemed to hear it but me. I never saw anything, but I was too terrified to get up and take a peek into the kitchen. And it was sure scary to a little kid lying there in the darkness listening to the phantom fire builder at work. And again, ladies and gentlemen, some of you may or may not be familiar with the term residual haunting. Residual haunting, there's believed to be 2 types of haunting. There's an intelligent haunting and a residual haunting. And a residual haunting is just like this story explained. It's just some partial event or series of events that will just replay, and they're like stored recordings, like psychic recordings or energetic recordings by either the structure or the land or whatever. And for some reason, they just spit out every once in a while. And maybe there's a trigger for them. Maybe there isn't. Nobody seems quite sure how they're triggered. Sometimes they can be yearly kind of annual events, and sometimes they can be just periodic and weird. But they can be things like that. The sounds of the fire being stoked, which would be a activity that was repeated over and over and over and over and over for generations, probably in that house. So It seemed to have left an imprint that played out. Now, an intelligent haunting, the thing with the residual hauntings is there may be apparitions involved, there may be visual anomalies, but they don't ever seem to interact in any measure with the people that are actually there. So they don't look and acknowledge, they don't even seem to be aware that there's somebody observing this. They just happen. Just like your TV doesn't seem to be aware that you're sitting there watching it or the movie you're watching. So it's kind of the same principle. That's a residual haunting. Now, an intelligent haunting is where it's very aware of you, like an apparition may form and look at you and smile and then disappear, or something may move towards you, or you're reaching for something and it moves away from you. I mean, those are all just different things. Or you're walking towards a door and it slams shut. Those are all very intelligent things. They are very much triggered and interacting with your presence being there. And sometimes it can be kind of hard to tell the difference with some phenomena, but all it's if you have an intelligent haunting, you're probably going to be, you're going to be able to tell pretty quick whether or not it's interacting with you or just something happening around you. But anyway, those are the two major types. That's the prevailing theories. So the fire stoking definitely sounds like one of those residual events. It's just something that happened over and over, and it just repeats. It just repeats because that's what happened in that house for so long. All right, so that was the first story of the night, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know. I wonder how many of you guys out there have had residual hauntings. Sometimes it can be those footsteps, like people talk about the footsteps coming up the stairs or walking down the hall, and at different times throughout the night. And sometimes those can be residual, or sometimes they can be intelligent. Like if you hear the footsteps coming up the stairs and they stop at your door and then just disappear. Now that seems very targeted towards the person that's aware and hearing them in the room. Now the thing is many times, and this is kind of a side statement, but many times we hear people laying there asleep and they're woken up by the sounds, but they pretend to be asleep. I laid there and tried to pretend to still be asleep. But I do believe that spirits are probably very well aware of when we're consciously in our bodies and when we're sleeping and drifting, and because I think that they're largely telepathic. They know by the activity going on in our brains whether or not we're actually paying attention or not. And I believe they can feel the tension rise when you're scared or nervous or whatever. So they know when you're aware, whether you hide under the covers or whether you're just sitting there wide-eyed staring. But I don't believe that you can fool a spirit that way. But people try, and it makes sense. I mean, sure, it's a terrifying thing to have something you don't understand walking around your room. You don't know what it wants, what it's going to do, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, it makes sense that people play possum, but I don't think the spirits are fooled by that, So anyway, you're on the phone. All right. Well, I guess I better get to you then. Let's get Mr. Aussie Tiger on the horn here. Welcome to the show, brother. Thanks for calling in. What's going on tonight?
You were talking about residual hauntings, and I remember this one experience I had at a camp I used to go to, and at the time I'd actually run away at the time when I had this experience.
Uh-huh.
But at this camp, there was no camps happening at the time, and yet one night I was there, I actually heard kids laughing and running around outside the little area I was in, and yet there was no one else there. I'm not sure if it's an intelligent or residual, but it was definitely an experience that I can remember.
Oh, man. Yeah, and that you're right. That could be either very easily. I mean, of course, if it's a camp where lots of children have been through the years, it could be very easily something residual. But it could also be something that was triggered by your presence.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it was triggered by, but they definitely sounded like a couple of young kids laughing, and I looked down and was like, there's no one here. There's no camp happening.
Oh, that's funny. That must have been really terrifying, though, huh?
Oh. Initially, I was a little scared, but then I was like, I don't know.
Wow.
Why am I scared? There's no one here. Because I thought I was invading the camp, but there was no camp happening.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's got to be terrifying. Did you stay the whole night?
Yeah, I
Well,
was too tired to go anywhere else.
you're very brave. Jeez. I think I might have just taken it on the road from that point. Man, that's freaky.
Nah, could have been worse.
Well, yeah, could a lot, yeah, of course, but but it's still pretty intense.
Yeah, it was intense because, but I think it was my first paranormal activity I've ever experienced ever at the
Wow,
time. So
that's kind of a baptism by fire right there. the first
yep.
the first experience you had was a bunch of kids laughing, and for me, I think that the whole kid thing again is just really creepy because I'm not always so convinced it's kids, but it may be, but it could also still be something
Like I said,
else.
it was my first time, so could have been kids, could have been demonic. I don't know.
Yeah,
Well, it was a Christian youth camp, so I'm not too sure on the demonic side, but
sure.
generally religious places are generally an attraction towards for these demons or something.
Sure.
They try to do all this evil stuff around them.
Wow. Well, that's pretty powerful, brother. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that with us.
Yeah, just so I call and share that with you guys. So
I
you know one
appreciate
of
it.
my
All right.
stories, but the other one I can't quite remember altogether.
Oh, well, if you remember, call in or let me know, brother. I'd love to hear from you again.
Yep, no worries.
All right. Have a good day.
You too.
And of course, for Aussie, it is the day. It's the daytime over there. And tomorrow daytime. He's in a whole different world than us. He's in the future. He's calling from the future, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, I think the whole children laughing thing is pretty intense. I forget, I forget there was a meme going around. It was like one of the most beautiful sounds in the world is a baby laughing, unless it's 3 a.m. and you don't have a baby. Then yeah, it does. It becomes something else at that point. But anyway, very cool. Let's see. That's it. No more calls. Okay, we're good. All right, we'll continue. Let Brent know you care. You care. Thumb it up. Oh, thanks, Kathy. I appreciate that. Absolutely. Give us a thumbs up, ladies and gentlemen, if you're enjoying the show. The thumbs up really do help us people on YouTube. The algorithm, most of YouTube is just automated. There isn't really anybody in charge of, making things work better. But the more interactions a video gets, the more it will be recommended to other people. So if you like what you're hearing, and I don't want people to thumb up if you don't like it. I mean, whatever. But if you're enjoying it, if you enjoy the shows, give it a thumbs up because it does actually help us to get a lot more exposure. And it's one way that all of you can help us continue to make the portal grow because the more exposure we get, the more people may show up and subscribe, and that's always helpful. So. We got another one here, and this one is from Minnesota. Minnesota. The Duke's old stomping grounds, my old stomping grounds, Kathy's. No, yeah, one of the Kathy's stomping grounds. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people from Minnesota. So, and they're all here. All the cool people are here anyway. So let's get into Minnesota here and find out just what's going on. It says in 1999, my husband's cousin had passed away of liver failure. And we all knew he was not going to make it since the life support machine is just helping him stay alive after the surgery. The situation occurred in the Twin Cities of Minnesota. That's the Minneapolis-St. Paul area for those of you who are not familiar with the term Twin Cities. My husband's cousin, Ted, not his real name, had suffered for almost a year, and he got skinnier and skinnier before they took him to the hospital for a surgery. And that year was my student teaching, trying to get ready to become a school teacher. My husband's relatives said December XX. I don't know why it's XX, 1999, was Ted's last day to live because they all agreed to take the tubes off. His relatives expected everyone to take the day off and to say goodbye to Ted, and I didn't want to be rude because it's too hard to say goodbye, so I decided not to take a day off from my student teaching. I know that some of my husband's relatives would probably think that I'm being rude, but I wasn't, and I knew I'm not going to feel very sorry with lots of tears. or I knew I'm going to feel very sorry with lots of tears. At 12 on that December, I knew my husband's cousin Ted passed away. The sky was very mellow, quiet, and eerie. And on my way home from school, I did a lot of thinking, such as where would he go or how was his final death like? And when I arrived home, I tried to call my husband and asked him, did he die? And I know it's a dumb question, but I just had to ask. I couldn't get a hold of him, so I called his other cousin's house. And when they answered, I asked, did Ted pass away? And where is my husband? And the other cousin said, they went to look for a coffin and a grave, and they'll be back later. I told his other cousin on the phone that I'll be there shortly tonight. In our Hmong culture, when a family member passes away, we have to stay with the survival family until the funeral begins. Every cousin, family, and relatives take turns staying with them for sympathy, sincere and warmth. Sometimes we even spent the night with the surviving family to keep them safe and secure. And that's how the Hmong people are so bonded with their families. Anyway, after this phone call, someone called me again, a girl, and was saying that she was going to come to my house for something. And as I recall, it was real. Real, but it happened so fast, like it was a dream. And I told her, I told her can come. And I don't know why she wanted to come, for what reason. I went to the kitchen digging for something to eat, and my brother and my son was watching Bart Simpson and the other cartoon shows, and all suddenly there was a doorbell rang, and I asked my brother, was that the cartoon? And he said, no, it wasn't the TV. The doorbell rang again, and then I went downstairs because my house is a split entry home, where basement is downstairs and living and sleeping area is upstairs. I opened the door and no one was there. I didn't scratch my head, but I was puzzling. Sorry, it's just written, with from a person who English is not their first language, so I'm doing the best I can here. And I thought to myself, that's weird. I closed the entrance door and climbed 3 stairs up, and then the doorbell rang again. And I was getting impatient, and I went back and opened the door one more time, and no one was there again. And as I was thinking, if someone was playing a trick, I should be hearing movements and etc. And I asked my brother to go to his room and look through his bedroom window to see what was going on and if he could see a person standing on the front porch. I don't know what took my brother so long in his bedroom. And as he was checking, I did a test where I closed the storm door and opened the entrance door widely, and I climbed the first 2 steps and staring directly outside, and guess what? The doorbell rang right in front of my eyes, ears, and myself. I was so mad and frustrated, I stepped down and swung the storm door widely, and guess what I said? You need to stop playing around. If you're going to come in, then come in or go away. I don't know what other people are thinking if they were me, but I don't remember being afraid and didn't realize it was a ghost or my husband's dead cousin that just passed away 4 to 6 hours ago. I guess people at that time don't remember getting spooked when unexpected things happen to them. When people want to get spooked, nothing shows up and they are already preparing to be afraid. And after that incident, my brother finally came from his room with a scary face, and I asked him, did you see anything? He just shook his head. I finally got a hold of my husband and explained to him the situation, and he said I guess Ted missed us, and he just wanted to drop by and say goodbye, which he never saw our house before. And I told my husband, I guess you're right, I'll be there shortly, and I asked my brother to stay and watch my son, but he insisted not to stay and want to go with me. We packed up and left. My husband's cousin's funeral lasted for 4 days and 3 nights for 24 hours. Among people who are not Christians, the funeral lasted for about a week. But in America, we shared on Friday and end on Monday afternoon and buried the dead in the afternoon. The hardest part was staying 24 hours for your loved ones. They believe the dead will pay its debt in the afterlife and then reincarnate to a new family or something. Well, after the funeral, my brother did not want to sleep in his room, and I've requested if my husband and I let him sleep in our room on the floor. I assumed he must be really scared because he slept in our room for a week until everything was back to normal. After that, my husband's cousin did not show up, Moreover, his death was really scary because 6 months later, the cousin older brother passed away, and a year later his mom passed away because of grieving for her two dead sons. It was like one person dying one at a time, just like a disease. And I recall my mom came to visit me on Christmas in 2000, and she said, "Thank God your husband's cousin Ted didn't take your husband with him." Well, I was confused and asked my mom why. And my mom said, after Ted's death, my dad had a dream saying that Ted was lonely in the other place and he wanted to ask my husband if he can have a drink with him. In my dad's dream, my dad said, "No, you cannot have a drink with my son in law. And if you want to have a drink, why don't you have a drink with me?" After the dream, 6 months later, Ted's older brother died in the hospital, suffering a head injury car accident. Everyone thought the family was cursed or did something horrible in the past. Huh. Yeah, a lot of cultures, they have very different rituals and such, but there is a lot of belief, in a heavy karmic belief and a lot of superstition as well. And I don't mean superstition in a discarding kind of, offhanded way. I just mean that they have a lot of structure to their beliefs, and it requires certain activities and actions to happen in order to do it correctly. And in our Western eyes, that seems like superstition. And again, they might be right. We might be missing stuff here, but it's just very foreign and very different from our observations of death rituals and stuff. So very interesting, though. Do the dead visit? Yeah, I think they do. I think they do. I don't know if they always ring the doorbell and stuff, of course, but I think they do. I think they stop and see their families, and they're there in some manner. Now, it's curious because a lot of cultures around the globe believe that the dead linger for a period of time, that they don't just suddenly boom pass away and they're in the promised land. There is a period of transition that is observed in many cultures, and I think that's very interesting. I don't know. But then again, oh, did you hear that? You know what that was? That was actually a bunch of snow falling off my roof. I've told you guys what it sounds like, thunder, and it's like, that's what it sounds like. I don't know if you guys heard that or not, but it's like this, 4 foot sheet of snow coming thundering down the roof. I'm sure the minion will be plenty not happy with that. But that's just the snow. I don't know if you guys heard it, though. Did you hear it? Kathy, did you guys hear it? Oh, no, it's not. It's not Santa. He's already done. So, yeah, that's the sound. So, a big sheet of like 3 or 4 feet of snow. It just came thundering down. It actually vibrated the house. It was crazy. That was a big one. Okay, so let's get on with this. This one I already did, right? Yeah. All right, so let me pull up a few more because we burned through the few that I had open in a quick hurry. Some cultures actually also do things like covering mirrors for a period of 3 days or more past following the death of somebody, a family member, because they believe that the soul lingers, and that's the soul saying goodbye to the family through that period of time. But the idea of covering the mirrors is so that the soul will not become trapped in a mirror and get confused and get stuck. So that's the purpose of covering the mirrors, as I understand it. There may be more to that, but I do know that mirrors are regarded in many ancient cultures as a very mystical object, and of course, I believe they can be portals at times. Not every mirror is a portal, but any mirror could be a portal. There is many, many, many stories and experiences that have had a lot to do with mirrors, especially on old furniture, like old furniture, that's antique-y stuff. Those mirrors seem to be, and maybe it's part of the process of the mirror being made. I don't know, maybe there's something in the fabrication that makes it more mystical when they made it in the old traditional ways, rather than our modern ways of just spraying some kind of paint on a glass. I think in the old days they silvered them or something like that. or there was some manner of it that maybe it made it more mystical having those base metals involved. But yeah, true enough, ladies and gentlemen, true enough. So let's get to some more stories here. I'm just keeping an eye on things as best as I can. Oh, hey, and they say good to see ya. And we got 63 people in here with us. That's phenomenal. Welcome, everybody, to those of you chatting and to those of you kicking back, just relaxing and listening. I'm thrilled you're here, and it's awesome. And please spread the word. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. I'd love to have you as part of the family. Because every night, 7 days a week, 7 p.m. Pacific time, we're doing a portal live. And then we have the podcast on top of that. 3 times a week. Are you kidding me? 10 paranormal portals every week. It's just a buffet of love. I don't even know what the hell that means. It just came out. So anyway, let's go to Washington State this time. It says, I'm going to start off with the backstory. When I was 6, my neighbor had about 10 cats. They couldn't really take care of them, and there was this fluffy black kitten that was on the brink of death, and he was so sick, and they weren't doing a thing about it. So I begged my mom for the cat, and they were willing to give it up to me. Well, we nursed him back to health, and I gave him the name Ladybug. And at the time, we didn't know if he was in fact a he until a good year and a half later. His name got changed to Mr. Bug, and he was the sweetest cat ever. Loved to be held and petted. Let me dress him up in doll clothes. He never once bit, scratched, or hissed at me. He was, I would guess, about 2 or 3 when this happened. One day while I was at school, a pack of dogs came into the yard, and before my mom could get Mr. Bug, the dogs got him. And we have a creek going around most of the yard, and the dogs dragged him through that. And by the time my mom could get my cat, it was too late. She got to him in the house, and she laid him on a chair and ran to get a towel so she could take him to the vet. And when she came back, he opened his eyes, looked at her one last time, and then he was gone. My dad wanted to tell me that he ran away, but my mom didn't want me to have the hope that he might come back home. And I was just devastated. That cat was like my baby. And I still haven't been able to find a cat that looks like him in the slightest bit. Bug had long fur and bright green eyes, and I mean, they practically were neon green. The most beautiful cat ever. Okay, now to the ghost part. About 6 months after this, I saw a cat that looked like him. But when I went to walk over to it, it just vanished. At that time, I didn't realize that it could have been his ghost, but after searching for the cat I had seen more than once and not finding anything, I just knew it was Bug saying goodbye. And the biggest thing that should have tipped me off was none of the dogs barked, and the cat was in plain sight. Our dogs will bark at anything and everything, but they never barked at Bug. I think Mr. Bug is still with me, keeping my new cat, okay, not so new now, he's 8, in line. And every time my cat now does anything naughty, he recoils in fear and runs and hide for a good 2 hours before he slinks out again. Tell me, what do you think? Well, I think these pets, and I don't really understand for sure, but I think that our pets, which we love and which we adopt and we bring into our family and open our hearts to, I think that they stick by us. I really do. Through the course of doing this show, I've covered so many stories of people who've lost these beloved pets, and yet they still have hints of their presence around them, like they're still there. And I think maybe they are. My mom had, and I've told this story many times, and I keep repeating it but I think it's a great illustration of this. My mom had this little white fluffy dog, and I can't remember. It wasn't the one she's got now is a Bashan, but a Maltese. It was a Maltese, and he was a little beautiful little dog. And his name was Tucker, and my mom and Tucker were just inseparable. This was her baby, and this dog loved my mom and just always by her side. And he got sick. He got sick with something, and I don't know what it was. Something to do with his blood, and he lost a bunch of white blood cells, and he just kind of went into failure. And it was very sad, very hard. Both my parents loved this dog so much, but He was really, really close with my mom and would sleep with her every night. And so the dog passed, and it was a very heartfelt, emotional thing. And it was a while after, but my mom started telling me, she's like, something weird happened. I'm like, what's that? And she says that, and she continues to say that every once in a while she'll be in her bed going to sleep, and she feels her Tucker get up on the bed, do his circles like he always did, and then plop down once he's found his spot. And he always did that same pattern every night. He would get up on the bed, do a few laps, do his circles, kind of like when a dog's going to poop. They just got to find the right place. Well, it's like the same thing when he was going to lay down. He'd just have to do this pattern, and then he'd find the spot, and boom, he'd plop down. And she says she still feels that to this day. Well, now, if it was close to the passing of the dog, I would say, well, maybe it's just her grieving mind, and, she's just trying to hold on to those memories, or those memories are just coming back or whatever. But the fact that it's been so many years and still that same thing, she's feeling that same thing still, it makes me believe he's still there. And I think they do. I think maybe they wait for us, like they are truly a part of our, for lack of a better term, quote unquote, soul family. Like they become part of us and part of our soul, and we become part of them. And a loving pet, I just think they stick with us until it's our time to go home. And then maybe we just go together. And I know it's there's like a Rainbow Bridge poem or something that speaks about that, but I think that there's maybe some truth to it, because so many people talk about experiencing apparitions or manifestations of their lost pets, their loving pets that they loved. So is it possible? Absolutely. I think it's absolutely possible. And to me, it seems likely, but I know everybody has their own opinions, and the show's never going to be about me telling you what to believe or not. But I think it's kind of a beautiful thing. But that's just my 2 cents. It's what you get when you listen to the shows. So the next one's coming from Indiana. Last week I was off from work and ran a few errands, and then I came home. I had a slight headache, so I figured that I'd lie down for a little while in bed until my headache medicine would kick in. I believe it was about 1 in the afternoon, and I was watching a show, and all of a sudden I hear running upstairs. Because I had taken some drugs and I was laying down, I just figured it was that I was hallucinating, and I dozed off. But I kept hearing things that I was sort of asleep, so I figured again I was sleeping, and I finally got up and started dinner for the family. And I was alone, for those that ask. I was in the kitchen cutting up some onion when I hear a big thump. I stopped cutting and stayed quiet, and then I hear a giggle, and then I hear like a child running. My kids' rooms are in front of each other, but it's a big hall, so the steps were heard for quite a while. I continued doing what I was doing, and I don't know if maybe they got upset because I was trying to ignore it or whatever, but it got really loud to the point that I could see my light fixture and fan in the kitchen vibrating. Now I say they because there was 2 sets of footsteps. When my husband got home, I told him what happened, and as we were talking about it, we heard it again. We went to check on everything, and he could not see anything different. 2 days earlier, we were in the kitchen, and we were having a few drinks, and the kids were sleeping upstairs when all of a sudden we hear footsteps, and my husband, thinking it was one of the kids, he went upstairs to put them back to bed, and he came down looking pale as a sheet of paper. He looks at us and says, "The kids are sound asleep." We all just looked at each other, and I didn't want to scare off my sis and brother-in-law, so I said maybe they beat you to the bed when they heard you coming or something. Well, last night my son and daughter came downstairs and tell me that their bedroom door keeps opening and closing, and I told them that maybe it was when I opened the door, the pressure in the house caused it to open. I however, know that something is going on. So after about 6 months, it starts again. The weird thing is that it is starting at about the same time that I started hearing things last year. Could that be one of the explanations for this weird activity? Yeah, the activity can be periodical. I mean, there's oftentimes, most hauntings are not constant. There's not constantly things going on. There'll be periods of time where something will happen, and it can be weeks or months later, and then something else might happen. And it's, just by virtue of living in that place, that, you experience many different things, but it's generally most haunting activity is through a period of the year. It's not every day all year round. I mean, that would be insane. But and some people believe it's by virtue of the spirits need to save energy. They need to generate energy in order to do these strange activities. But yeah, it's not abnormal at all. And most things happen in cycles. Sometimes it can be having to do with the time of year. Now, would that make them more residual? Maybe. Maybe those are more residual type of activities, though the ones that are more periodic and annually happen at some time of the year. But even in intelligent hauntings, there are times where things happen to somebody or with somebody, and then there'll be periods of weeks or even months that nothing will happen. So, for whatever reason, I don't know, but it is strange. Let's go to the next one, and this is coming from Tennessee. This one's pretty short. It says, "My paranormal story sounds somewhat fake, but trust me, it's all real. I'm only a teenager and have lived in my house all of my life. Only in the past year have I noticed a lot of weird stuff happening. The most recent thing that has happened to me was last night. I was in my room trying to go to sleep when I heard a loud bang, but nobody else heard it. It sounded like a fuse blowing up, but every single fuse was okay. I then went back to my room and started to listen to my MP3 player, and I had just put a brand new batteries in, and as soon as I turned it on, the batteries died and the air around me turned freezing cold. Another thing that has happened to me was a while back during summer break. My friend was over spending the night, and I had got up to do something to eat and drink, or to get something to eat and drink. And when I was in the hallway leading to my room, I heard someone say, 'Bree.' Thinking it was my mom, I said, 'What?' But nobody answered. So I went running back to my room because everyone was asleep that I remembered. My friend asked me what she wanted. My friend asked what she wanted, and I said, 'Who?' And she meant my mom, but I told her that she was asleep upstairs. I told my friend that I left the light on and was going to turn it off. It instantly shot." What does that mean, shot? We looked at each other and murmured that something that I couldn't even understand. About 30 minutes later, at around 2:30 a.m., we heard someone say, "This is my house, not yours. Leave." And all we did was turn on my light and stay up all night. I'll tell you about the next thing that happens when it happens. Huh. That's horrible. That is just horrible. If that is indeed real, that is absolutely horrible. And these now I know there was mention of an MP3 player, and people are like, "How old is this?" This story comes from 2008, ladies and gentlemen. So it's an older story, but it still doesn't mean that it's any less valid just because it happened a while ago. I think it's a pretty wild story. I don't know. What would you do if you heard someone say, "This is my house, get out"? I'd be tempted to just get out. No, I'm just kidding. I think it's time to do some saging and cleansing then, though. That's pretty hardcore. I do believe that there was mention in there about this boom that nobody else heard, and I think that spirits can do that. They can create these auditory hallucinations because I think they operate largely telepathically, and can, because and I've mentioned this on the podcast recently. I think I've even mentioned it on the YouTube show before, but I can't tell you how many stories we've covered on this show and how many testimonials we've covered where people have said, we were sitting in the living room and boom, suddenly things were blown up in the kitchen. Could hear the cupboard doors open and close and dishes flying out, smashing everywhere. It was just like a tornado was going on in there. And so we flew into the kitchen to look and find everything was fine. Nothing was out of the ordinary. Nothing was out of place. But they heard this incredible cacophony of noise. And so it seems to me that they can generate auditory hallucinations and create these things. So when a voice like this happens, it probably wasn't really as physical as it was mental. But it's nonetheless freaky. It's nonetheless horrifying to have something tell you need to get out of your house. I mean, even in the Bigfoot community, there's talk of quote unquote mind speak, and that's a telepathic communication with allegedly some some Bigfoot or Sasquatch. And, I don't think that that's, I think that we all have that ability. It's all built into us. It's just that we have forgotten that part of ourselves, maybe. I don't know. I think that we are largely, telepathic and psychic. We just don't remember how anymore. Some way, maybe it's by virtue of our modern age and modern technologies, and maybe it's by virtue of the course of our lives and how we're pushed to this feverish pace of, functioning in our modern world, that we've forgotten these things. But I do believe that it's all lying within us. It's just we don't realize it anymore. We've kind of forgotten. All right, let's go to the next one. And this one is from Pennsylvania. This one's real short. It says, my cousin, oh man, what an opening. Oh, that's a heartbreaker. My cousin was murdered March 23rd, 2008. He and I were very close growing up, and we even lived together at a time, and I was very saddened by his unexpected death. Around the time he died, strange things had been happening. The day of his funeral, the front door at our grandmother's home flew open and closed by itself. No one was home but my grandma and my handicapped cousin, and they were in the kitchen. The door stayed open for about 2 minutes, and then it closed. That morning in my home, oh yeah, I see there's a call. I'll get to it right after this, not after the story. That morning in my home, my radio station had been changed. I listened to a certain station every night, and I've never turned it, but I woke up the day of his funeral, and it was on a different station. A few weeks after my cousin passed, I had to get up at around 6 a.m. to get ready for school, and I heard someone coming from the third floor, and I heard heavy footsteps as if someone was running. My room is on the second, but then I had to stop and think, no one ever gets up this early but me. I thought one of my brothers were up, so as I'm walking into my room, I look up and I see my cousin staring me dead in the face. He had on all black. He didn't speak. He just disappeared. I think he came back one last time because he lived with my family and me, and I got scared and ran to my room. That's the whole story. Well, let's get to this phone call and see what's going on here. And this is area code 828. You're on the air. Hello?
Hello?
Hi.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to the show.
So, okay. Thanks.
You're welcome.
I think there's a delay
There is.
or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's on your mind tonight?
Well, no, I just wanted to share a story. I've mentioned it in chat before.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah. I grew up in a haunted house.
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah. It's pretty creepy story actually.
Okay.
Well, for me anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I lived in this house till I was about 14 years old, I think.
Okay.
And we would always hear steps. It was a 2-story farmhouse, and it was at least 100 years old. It had to have been. I mean, I don't even know, but I know it was a plantation house.
Ooh. Mm-hmm.
And they had slaves. Not the best part of my family's history, but there were slaves.
Sure, I understand.
And it was the owner and family. It was him, his wife, and a daughter. I guess she was a teenager or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, she got involved with one of the slaves and ended up getting pregnant.
Oh.
Yeah, and during that time, that was highly unacceptable.
Right.
So, they kept her, secluded away. They kept it a secret, whatever. So, time came for her to give birth. And when, she went into labor, Dad sent Mom into town because this was in, horse and buggy
Yeah.
type.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. So it took her, all day to get into town. And but I dad said he would stay with daughter. I don't know if this was actually my family
Okay.
or um if it was other people, and I mean I don't know.
Okay.
I'm hoping it wasn't my family, you know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
Um so by the time mom and Doc got back um to the house, because it's way out in the boonies, way out in the
Hmm.
boonies. So it took like all day. It um the daughter had already given birth,
Okay.
and um the I didn't find this out until we had moved out of the house and
Oh.
everything. But anyway, back to the story. Okay, so after mom and Doc got back to the house, she had already delivered the baby.
Hmm.
Dad and baby were gone, and it was a mixed baby, which wasn't acceptable, blah, blah, blah.
Sure. Yeah.
And um, they go upstairs, find the daughter by herself without dad and baby. And they're like, okay, where's your dad? Where's the baby? And the daughter says, well, he took it to the pigsty.
Oh.
And yeah. And
Wow.
I think it was a residual haunting,
Hmm.
because we would always hear that running down the steps.
Mm.
We would always hear somebody coming down the steps. And my mom always was like, "Oh, it's just a cat. It's just a cat." I'm like, BS, mom. I'm holding the cat in my hand. Like I'm petting the cat right now, hearing this.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Oh
But
man. Yeah. If ever there was
yeah,
something to create a residual footprint, that would be the one of the things for sure.
yeah, and it was always cold up in mine and my sister's. Like we shared a room.
Hmm.
It was always cold in that room. Like even if
Wow.
we had heaters going, it was always cold.
Hmm.
But we just explained it away by it being, you know, over 100 years old and
Oh, sure.
whatever.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
anyway,
That's pretty intense.
that's my story.
Yeah.
Yeah, it when my mom told me that
Oh.
that's what actually happened and that's what those footsteps were, I was like,
So,
"Holy crap, mom!
so she
Are you
knew.
kidding me right now?"
She knew all along then, but she was just trying to
Yeah,
keep you killing. Okay. Okay.
yeah, she was just yeah, yeah, she was
Wow.
just trying to like not
Yeah. That's
not
so
freak us
intense.
out, because I mean, like I grew up in that house
Right.
from birth till 14, and as did my brother and sister.
Wow.
And we all heard it.
Hmm. And it was just that. That was just these
So
footsteps. So there was
it
no.
was just the footsteps.
Okay.
Well, there was like you could see the chairs. Like we had a rocking chair; it would rock back and forth. I mean, and then yeah,
So
there were other things, but that was the main one that I remember.
yeah. Wow. Wow.
So yeah, it was
That's
pretty
pretty.
creepy.
That is a lot creepy, and for what it's worth, I'm sure. Sorry. I know it was a different time, and it was horrible. So much horrible things
Yeah.
happened, but yeah, it's
Mhm.
uh, that's such a heartbreaker, huh?
Yeah, I know. It was like, man, just because it wasn't acceptable. I mean,
Yeah. Wow.
like that poor little baby.
I
Because I
know.
always, and another thing, like the barn and the hog pen, the hog sty, were still standing. I mean, it was like I said, it was a plantation or
Wow. Oh.
It was a huge farm, and you could always just feel something when you went into that hog sty. Like,
Oh, yeah. I'm sure.
it was just a creepy feeling.
Yeah, something like
I,
that.
I, I can't even explain it. I didn't go in there much,
I don't blame you. I don't
you
think I would
know.
either.
And that was even before I knew the full story.
Right.
It was just not somewhere you wanted to be.
Yeah, those kind of
But
activities leave a hell of a footprint, you know. Wow.
yeah,
Oof.
yeah. I mean, yeah.
That's intense. Wow, I really appreciate you calling in and sharing that. That's amazing.
Yeah. No, thanks for having me on and taking the call.
Any time you ever think of another one, just call in. I'd love to hear it.
Okay.
All
Cool.
right.
Thanks.
Have a great night.
Thank you. You too.
Okay. Very cool. Wow. I mean, it's of course it's a horrible, horrible, horrible tragedy, and in a long, sad history of a lot of tragedy, that's certainly some of the most ugly. Um, and there's no, there's no way to make that make sense. Of course, it just doesn't. But it's all the same. It did happen, and of course, those kind of events do leave those huge psychic footprint impressions. And if there's ever things that would generate a haunting, certainly the mar of slavery would be one of the big ones because of all the pain and suffering. I mean, it's pretty much the same reason that prisons are so haunted, and old prisons are hotspots for investigators, because so much pain, so much sadness, so much suffering, so much horror that people live through. And so, but at least it seems for the most part we've grown from that history, and those things hopefully, I don't know, maybe it's just me being optimistic, but hopefully that's moving into a thing only from the past. I know there's still horrors going on even to this day that don't make any sense, but at least that's an ugly mark that's a part of the past. And hopefully will continue to become more and more a distant memory rather than atrocities like that still happening. But I guess that's excuse me, let me get up here for a second. I just got to look, and yeah, we're over an hour, ladies and gentlemen. So I guess we did it. We went through the portal tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you all for being here and being a part of the shows. It's been great to see the new faces, the new names popping up, and meeting new people. New caller tonight. That was awesome. It's great to meet you all, and thank you all for being here. And Paranormal-thon. We did a parathon on Halloween, but anyway. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for being a part of the show. And I will be back tomorrow night with the Friday show, and then Don and I will be back on Saturday, and we will be welcoming Kev Baker to the show. So really looking forward to that experience. So anyway, guys, love you all. Brand, we love that you get so invested in what you're talking about. You are the ultimate listener. Oh, thank you, real. I appreciate that. That means a lot. I just got too much heart sometimes, I guess. But love you all very much. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you, Moog. Appreciate it, brother. Rocked tonight. Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Kathy. That's very sweet. But I hope you guys have a wonderful night. Have a wonderful Friday tomorrow. It's Friday. I mean, what the hell can go wrong, right? So anyway, guys, love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other. Help each other out. Find the magic in every day. And remember to laugh as much as you can. So that's going to do it for us tonight. I'm closing the portal, but I hope you all have incredibly sweet dreams. All right. Love you guys. Good night.